Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy. Good morning, everybody. I have another interview here on the Idiot Quilter, and I'm Stephen, as you well know. And with me today, I have Dani from So Not an Expert, and we're going to talk about Dani's YouTube channel as well. But first of all, we're just going to get to know Dani. So, Dani, can you tell me your name again, your last name, your first name and your last name, and where you are located?
Of course, Stephen. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on today. I really appreciate that.
It's my
And good morning to all of your viewers. Good morning. Like Stephen said, my name is Dani Abitangelo. I am from Northern Illinois, a southwest suburb of Chicago, where it is cold and snowy right now. So I hope the weather is better wherever you are at in the world. Um, Here on our channel, we do a lot of really fun things. I like to do tutorial-based videos for the most part because I am really new to quilting myself. And so if I've learned something, then I like to share that with the world, and share that with all of my viewers and basically anyone else that's willing to watch.
Okay, that's great. And we'll come back to talk a little bit more detail about your YouTube channel later on. But right now, how long have you been quilting, since you mentioned you haven't been doing it that long?
I've only been quilting for about 5 years. I've been sewing since I was in third grade, and I've been using a sewing machine for about as long as that as well. But only quilting for about 5 years.
Yeah, well, that's about as long as I've been quilting too. So, a lot of people dropped into quilting during COVID and everything like that is something new. So there's a lot of people that have discovered this hobby, this art form, and are loving it. And it's just something that keeps us going, isn't it? Because it challenges our creative mind, and we create nice things at the end of it, which is always nice as well. So how did you get started though in quilting? Now you said you've been sewing since an early age. So, but how was it that you got started into quilting then?
Well, I've always loved sewing. I mean, obviously, if I started in third grade, my grandmother used to sit in front of her sewing machine and mend all of her clothes. And I would sit next to her and watch her do that. And then as I got into grade school was starting to offer other sewing classes and home economics classes and things like that. And so I would take those as much as I could and make all the fun projects that you make in school and to learn how to use all the different techniques. And then as I got older, you start to get into more fashion-based stuff because that's just what the schools are teaching. So I started doing more clothing and apparel and curtains for my house and placemats and things like that. But fashion was never really my thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can make a sweater, I can make Halloween costumes for my kids when they were little. But it never really fed the passion like I wanted it to. I mean, I loved it. I loved sewing, but it just didn't feel like it was enough for me. So I was trying to find other creative ways to sit in front of this machine and create something beautiful and artistic. And I came across a YouTube channel. Go figure. I came across a YouTube channel where they were actually making quilts, and I had always thought quilting was an archaic art form. It was something that they did back in the pioneer days. I honestly had no idea that it was something that we still do to this day. And so when I saw her create this beautiful creation with pre-cut fabrics that you didn't really have to think too much about, I was like, my gosh, I know I could do this. That seems like it's easy enough, and it puts me in front of the machine more than it puts me in front of an ironing board and pins, which was my least favorite part of apparel sewing. So I bought a couple of jelly rolls, and I sat down with the video and I played it really, really slowly, and I followed the directions to make it. And I made my very first project. And after that, I was hooked. I kept buying more and more pre-cut fabrics and more yardages and different patterns. And I just kept making all kinds of fun things. My first full-size project was a challenge. Oh, I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but that one was a challenge for sure. But I just loved it. I loved taking all of these little bitty pieces and creating something artistic with them. And it's amazing what you can create with just a couple of geometric shapes. It's just absolutely incredible to me.
It's very true. And I think we as quilters are the only people on the face of the planet that actually take fabric, cut it up into little pieces, then resew it back together again. And there are ones out there in the world who are not in the know who think we are definitely nutso when it comes to doing that. But yeah, I know what you feel, how you feel about it. And thank goodness we had YouTube, right? I mean, that's where I learned how to do things too. So, you know, it's a marvelous hobby. So did anybody in your family influence you?
Not with regards to quilting. No, no one in my family has really taken on that particular hobby, but my mom and my mom specifically has always been a very creative person. When I was younger, she would participate in a lot of craft shows, and she would make various different projects with her and her friends. And participate in the craft shows and sell them. There were, you know, I remember advent calendars that she used to, Christmas advent calendars that she used to make. And I remember sitting at the dining room table helping her put all those little pieces together, putting all the little snaps on them so that they could be up on the tree later on, and lanterns and things like that. So she's always been kind of my creative drive, in that you can take these objects that you wouldn't normally think to create something with, and just create something absolutely beautiful with. She used to make my Halloween costumes, just like I made my daughter's Halloween costumes. So, you know, I would help her with those things. That's one of the other reasons I know how to use a sewing machine, and why I would sit in front of it with her as well. So she has always been my driving force with regards to creativity. And anytime I kind of fall into a slump and I've got, you know, some fabric or a pattern or something, and I can't put the pieces together, I can't figure out how to get it, I just call her and I say, okay, mom, I want to make this pattern, but I just don't know what fabric to go with. Can you go with me to the store and help me figure it out? And so she's been a great person for that. And I really appreciate her help with that.
Well, it really does help when there is somebody else in your family who has a love of this, even if it's maybe not quilting specifically, but something to do with sewing, because yeah, we need help. There's no two ways about it. It's good to have somebody on call for that kind of thing. So what's your favorite creation, or do you have one, and why?
You know, I've been thinking about this because a lot of people have asked that question, and it's a very popular question. And I can't say that I really have a one specific favorite, but I do have a few of them that mean a lot to me. I don't necessarily know that they're my favorite ones, but they definitely have a very strong place in my heart. I have a bed runner that I made for my father a few years ago. He unfortunately passed away, but I made a bed runner. I actually had made it with some extra fabric, and then later on I ended up giving it to him to kind of spruce up his hospital room that he was in. So that's one that has a really special place for me. And actually the pot holders down here in the bottom, I don't know if you guys can see them out here,
Yep.
but those pot holders were made with the scrap fabric from that quilt. I actually have a video on my channel that explains that a little bit more. So that those have a special place for me. Newly, we just added this piece here, which is a cat block.
Yep.
We had a family cat that passed away just before Thanksgiving. And so on one of my live streams, we made this block in her honor, and it'll sit there in the wall because she used to be here in the room with us. So that one has a special place as well. The rainbow quilt that you see as part of my YouTube channel, that one has a special place for me as well. That one was one of my very first full size, and actually that one's a king size quilt that I made for my sister for her wedding to her husband a few years ago. That was a labor of love, but it was one of my very first huge quilts that I had ever made. So that was a huge accomplishment for me. I'm not necessarily sure it's my favorite, but it was a major accomplishment for me. And I'm really proud of that one because it turned out absolutely gorgeous. You can't see any of the flaws in it, but they're there. I
Right.
know they're there.
You know I'm there, and nobody else will unless you point them out. So, and we don't do that.
Right, exactly.
Never point them
Yeah,
out.
so I mean, everything I make, I try to make with purpose or with reasons. So I think every project that I have has some meaning behind it. I don't just randomly make things.
Right.
I don't make things just to make them. There's usually a purpose behind them. So I think every piece that I make has some type of meaning for me.
Yeah, and it is kind of an unfair question because I what I've heard from a lot of quilters is their favorite one is the one they're working on currently, oftentimes. So yeah, it's hard to pick. I guess it's like children, you know, can you pick out your favorite one? Well, secretly, I think some people can. But when it comes to quilting,
I think it depends on the day.
I think, yeah, that could be. That could be. So, what type of quilter would you describe yourself as? Do you lean towards the more traditional patterns? Are you more into the modern or experimental freeform kind of a thing?
I don't know that I really have a type. Probably more modern just because they're more kind of available to you and they're more in front of you and you see them more is probably where I'm leaning more towards, but that doesn't mean to say that I'm not I don't like the traditional blocks and types of quilts and things like that. I will say with regards to fabrics though, I am more of a modern specifically batik type of fabrics. I absolutely love those. I'm a bit of a bright colored person, in case you haven't noticed by my background. So bright colors, I have a tendency to kind of veer towards those more so than the war type materials or the pastels and things like that. But with regards to the types of blocks, I'm learning all kinds of new and wonderful things with my channel, and all my viewers are teaching me. I've just recently learned paper piecing, which has kind of become a new love for me, at least for a little while. So that's where I'm at right now with regards to what I'm working on. So
Well, I was going to say, this is also an unfair question because I think as quilters we evolve. I think, we may start out on traditional when we're starting to learn, but I think we get tired of that and want to move out and explore other possibilities. And as you said, fabrics, today's fabrics and things like that give us an opportunity to explore creative possibilities. And like you, I love batiks and I love bright colors as well. And yeah, I stay away from the pastels and the more muted tones and things like that. I figure go bold or go home, kind of a thing.
yeah.
So speaking
Yep.
of bold, as I said before we started today's interview, I'm loving the colors in your room. They are bold. It's a wonderful backdrop for the interview, and I'm assuming this is your sewing area. So can you describe what your area is? Is it just a single room in your house? Is it an extra bedroom? How do you have it set up?
Oh yeah, of course. So this room, I wish I could take credit for the amazing color scheme in this bedroom, but I actually can't. This is a bedroom. It is my daughter's bedroom. I have twin daughters that are both away at college right now. So when one of my daughters was getting ready to move out to college, I have my sewing cabinet here, which you guys can kind of see. It's a sewing cabinet here, and I had this in my kitchen. But then we redid our kitchen, and then there was no longer room for it. So I told her when she moved out, we were going to loft her bed, and then I was going to move my sewing cabinet in here. So then that way her and I could share the room. So the room has actually kind of evolved a little bit. Her bed is actually just behind the camera here, and it's lofted. And then underneath her bed is a desk with my computer stuff, because this is also my work office. Yeah. And then this section here on this side of the room is my sewing space. So when she comes home from college, this whole cabinet folds up and it just looks like a little armoire in the corner. And this all is, I mean, this all stays, but this all folds up into a nice little corner. And then that way she has the entire room to herself. So it does make it for a little bit of a challenge when she comes home from school to kind of do both. But we've tried to make it work as best we can.
Well, I was going to say, though, you've really utilized the space well. I mean, it's got multiple uses. And I love the idea that you could just take your sewing machine, fold it all up and slide it over, against a wall or whatever to make the room. I think that's a really great use of design and space in there. And yeah, I'm just absolutely love the colors that are happening.
Oh, thank you.
It's dazzling. It's really dazzling.
Oh, thank you. Well, lime green is my favorite color. That's one of the reasons she picked it when she decided to paint her room. That is also one of her favorite colors. Dark purple is one of my favorite colors, like a nice amethyst. Yeah. That's one of my favorite colors, and she likes the blue. So we've tried to incorporate all three of those colors into the room as much as we can. Once I move my sewing stuff in here, I tried to bring a little bit of me into it too, right? As much as I can. So you'll see little pops of purple in the room in different places, and that's my touch.
I was going to say too, those colors that you're just mentioning, the lime green, the purple, and the blue curtains, that they do go together very well. Nice. It's nice to have an area you can walk into, and it's bright, it's cheerful. I find that very motivating. that, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Motivating, relaxing. You kind of feel in your own space. And you know, especially with a small home like mine and having, you know, as many kids as we do, sometimes it can be a little difficult to find your space. And so I think it's a really important. And that's one of the reasons why I love this particular cabinet, because like I said, the whole thing just folds down and the doors all close and it's like it was never even there. And then, you know, you open it all up and it's like this beautiful butterfly. It just opens up for the whole world to view. So most of the time it stays open now, but
all you need is a button that you can push and everything just unfolds for you.
well, I can do that with the machine, but not the rest
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
The machine has a lift on it, but everything else has to come out manually.
Well, let's talk about your machine and your equipment. And I've noticed that you've got a really nice space the way it's laid out. Your sewing machine, your cutting mat, your pressing mat. You've got the perfect triangle, as they say, that we're supposed to have for this kind of thing. But what is that machine? What is your sewing machine?
This is a Baby Lock Quilter's Choice. It's not new. It was not new to me when I purchased it. It was a used machine. I started with just a regular brother machine that you would buy from any local sewing machine store or, you know, big box store. I started with a very inexpensive brother machine is what I started with. And then as I started to evolve in the hobby, I found that there were certain things that I really wanted to be able to do. Like I wanted to be able to adjust my sewing speed because I am, you know, I'm a bit of a lead foot when it comes to the car, and apparently I am one when it comes to the machine as well. So I wanted to upgrade my machine to something that gave me a little bit of a dial and limited how fast I could go with it. So that's what this one does. This one also has a thread cutter on it, which, you know, it wasn't a key selling point for the machine, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
So if you can get one, that's great. But I've always loved the Brother brand name, and Baby Lock is the luxury brand or the high-end brand of the Brother. So that's why I opted for the Baby Lock. I don't know, I might end up going with a Juki later on, a straight stitch Juki machine later on. I'm not sure yet. I've been kind of hemming and hawing about it, but right now I like the setup that I've got. This machine has over 200 different types of stitches if I ever wanted them. I don't, but
I know.
I did, they're there.
Yeah, the machines we get, they all have all these wonderful decorative stitches, but as quilters, we don't tend to use them a lot. You know, it seems like a bit of a waste, Juki, everybody seems to want a Juki. You see here where I live, both baby locks and Jukis are not readily available. We're more Janome and Berninas and things like that here. But I do have a question for you, because I'm curious. What is that little device behind your sewing machine that's sticky? Is that a light? Is that a camera?
It is. Yeah, it's a light.
Oh, okay.
It's just a flat light. Yeah, so this is an older machine, and with the older machine, the lights on them is not very bright. Right. I just have a little bitty LED under here, and I know you can buy those ones that go all the way around the neck, but the neck on this machine is very tiny as it is, so I didn't really want to add anything here. So I just bought a light that moves around. It clamps on the door over here, and then I just turn it on right behind it, and it lights up the whole machine. Here, I can show you.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that way it also is out of the way when I need it to be out of the way, or I can move it in and out or push it over here. It's more flexible than something that would be under the neck of the machine.
Now, where did you get that?
Amazon.
Oh, okay. I have to look for it, because I really like that. I think that's a great.
Yeah, I love the fact that it had the clamp on it instead of like a stand or anything, because then that way I can kind of clamp it wherever I need to.
Wherever you need it.
Before I had my sewing cabinet, I was actually sewing at my kitchen table in my kitchen, like, you know, a lot of home quilters. And so this was really great, because then I just clipped it to the side of the table. It would just clamp there, and then that way I could still move it around to wherever I needed it.
Yeah, true. Well, I really like that. Every time I do an interview, I see something. Oh, I need to get one of those with it. So it usually costs me a lot of money from that.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's not an inexpensive hobby, that's for sure.
Oh, well, no. And if anybody goes in it and they think they're going to be able to do this on a really tight budget, think again. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite tool that you can't live without, that you reach for constantly?
I mean, obviously you have your obvious choices, you know, your rulers, your cutters, your things like that. recently it's been this silly thing. The purple thing has been my new favorite tool. I don't know that it's necessarily the only favorite tool I have, but it's definitely been my newest favorite. I have found that I've grabbed that a lot more than I expected to, and that and the Wonder Clips are probably one
Oh,
of my
yes.
other favorite tools that I have, because I use those for just about everything, not just for holding fabric together, but I have Wonder Clips on the walls to hold up things. I have Wonder Clips to keep things separated, and so yeah, I use those quite a bit.
Yeah, I know. I love Wonder Clips too. I just wish they were a little cheaper because you need a small fortune because you can never have too many Wonder Clips. So
I
yeah.
wish they came in different sizes too. That would be
Yeah.
nice.
Well, they do have a longer one. Um,
Yeah.
and I love those. I use those a lot too. But yeah, I can't live without my Wonder Clips. Also because if I had to pin anything, well, thered be bloodletting for that because I'm not good with sharp things. And
Me either.
which is kind of
I try
ironic.
to avoid the pins as much as I can.
Yeah, so do I with it. So, and do you have now? You just mentioned that you're into paper piecing. So I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite technique? And I'm assuming that probably that seems to be your favorite technique of the moment.
At the moment, yeah, it is, because it's something that I've just recently learned how to do late last year, and I'm just fascinated with the amount of things that you can create with it. So I've been trying to test out different ways of doing it and things like that. Recently I just watched a video from Sobecca. I'm sure you guys have heard of
Yeah.
her.
Mhm.
I just recently watched a video of hers with freezer paper piecing. So I want to try that technique out too, because that looks like it could be a lot more fun than trying to peel all the paper back.
Yeah.
So I'd like to try that one as well. But yeah, paper piecing is my current favorite technique. I get bored with things very easily
Mhm.
and very quickly. So like right now the paper piecing is great, but I really want to try applique. That's going to be my next one. So in the next couple of weeks, you'll probably see videos on my channel for that, because I'm going to try that out, and I'm sure that'll be my next favorite.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty though of this hobby, because there are so many different techniques and so many different places, things you can experiment with. I have not done a lot of paper piecing. I have done a little bit of it, but that was quite a while ago. I need to get back into it though, and try, and especially that freezer. I've seen those videos with the freezer paper thing, which, oh yeah, that would be a lot better than having to peel that bloody paper off the back of everything at the end of it. If anything kills your joy, it's doing that. Although I hear some
Yes.
people like doing it, so teach his own.
It
So
it can be therapeutic. I think it depends on the pattern that you're working with. This one here that I have here, the paper on this one was just brutal because the pieces were so small. But I have worked with the It's So Emma paper from Fat Quarter Shop,
yeah,
and the paper piecing for that, the paper just peels right off.
yeah,
It's beautiful, and it really is easy to do, and it's actually pretty therapeutic. This one was a little bit more challenging.
yeah. But getting those little bits out is a pain in the butt. So, if you had all the money in the world, is there a piece of equipment you would like to invest in?
Um, well, I mean, I don't know that I would say equipment, but definitely space.
Mhm.
I would
Well,
love to have a bigger space. And obviously I would like to have a little bit of a different setup. I mean, like you mentioned that I kind of have the triangle going on here, but it's pretty tight. It's pretty small. I'd love to have a much bigger sewing cabinet and a much bigger cutting table and things like that. I mean, I just space wise, I think I'd like to be able to invest. I mean, I know a lot of people would say, oh, I'd love a long arm. And to be honest, I haven't really used a long arm. So, and I don't really do free motion quilting on this machine just yet. That's one of the things that me and my channel are going to learn this year. So I wouldn't say that I necessarily want that piece of equipment just yet until I know how to do
true,
it.
true, because that's a pricey piece of equipment. I know I've got one. So, but yeah, I think space is very important to us. I don't think we can ever have too much space. And what space we have, we make work. Like yours, you've made it work. I mean, it can be a bedroom, it can be your sewing room, all that kind of thing. But yeah, space, that's the thing. I'd love to have a separate house to have as a sewing, like an open concept, a bungalow, open concept. Well, warehouse, maybe. I don't know.
Or even a really big basement would work too.
Yep. Yeah. I have a fairly big sewing room and it is in the basement of our house. But even still, I find I love my space, but I could use a little bit more. You know, knock out a wall or two, but
There you go.
that's not in the plan. So it's changing thought here. Have you ever belonged to an in-person group or a guild or a design team or anything like that since you got started in quilting?
No, unfortunately, and that's one of the reasons why I actually started my own YouTube channel. My local quilt store is not close to my house. It's like an hour drive from here.
Oh,
And I found that they offer all of those types of things, but they seem to offer them during the day, and I still work a full-time job.
right.
I'm not retired yet, unfortunately. So I really haven't been able to participate in any of those things unless I take a day off of work to do so. So there really are no quilting guilds in my area, or at least none that I can find,
Right.
that are close enough that I would be able to attend. I mean, I work, I'm away from my home for 10 to 12 hours a day with my full-time job. And so during the week it can be very, very difficult. I am a weekend warrior when it comes to this hobby for sure. But no, unfortunately not. I did attend a quilt retreat, my very, very first quilt retreat last year, and I recorded a couple of videos on that on my channel. That was super exciting for me. It was an experience I had never done before, and I really loved it. I had an amazing time. I loved meeting other people that are in this hobby. I mean, my YouTube channel allows me to do that, but I've never met anybody in person. I mean, I've been to quilt stores,
Yeah.
but never really actually talked to anybody. Surprisingly enough, people would not believe that I'm actually kind of a shy person. And
You want to know something? We have to stop telling ourselves that because every YouTube creator I know says the same thing. Even I say that about myself too. I think we're just kidding ourselves. We're out there. We're out there. Either that or we're really good actors about that. Hide
well,
our.
and I think it's easier to talk to a camera than it is to a person because the camera can't give you facial expressions.
That's true. That's true. And if you don't like what the other person's saying, you always turn them off.
Exactly. Or flip the channel. There you
Yeah.
go.
But back to our discussion here about groups and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think one thing that the pandemic gave us with like Zoom, like we're using right now, and with YouTube and everything, it has given us the ability, if not in person, at least still by video connection to meet other people. And I really like that because I have been to retreats before and they're fine. But the thing that bugs me about retreats is lugging all my stuff to it and
Mhm.
then set up, take down, and then you always forget something. And it's always a key part of what you want to work on. And I have found no matter how much I plan, I always forget something. And I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young man anymore. I need servants to move that stuff. So if I can do it online with a whole bunch of other people, I find that for me, that's just as enjoyable as going to an in-person one. And I meet people from all around the world on there, which is interesting, which is not.
Yeah, I'd love to get to a point where I'm able to attend one of those sometime this year. I unfortunately have not been able to catch any of them. I know Becca does quite a few of them. I know Stephanie Stitches has done a few. I think Sean even did one or two from the Soul Guy channel. But unfortunately, I just haven't been able to catch any of them yet. But I'm hoping to catch one this year. I've got all year.
Well,
I'm gonna make one.
I run twice a year an online retreat. My next one will be in May, the first Saturday in May. I haven't put out the details about that yet, but it will be on a Saturday, and I purposely put it on a Saturday. It's just a one-day thing, because I know there's a lot of people that are still working like yourself, and that's the only time they can attend that. It's very nice to be retired because I am, and I love being retired. But yeah,
I bet, yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing what I'm doing now in quilting if I was still working. Well, I know I wouldn't. I just know I wouldn't. I wouldn't have the time for it. So, yeah. But I try to do the retreat for people like yourself who, 5 days a week are busy working. So give them opportunity. So that the announcement for that one will come out in another month or so. Yet I'm in the planning stages again because whatever. But that was a shameless plug for my stuff. So let's get back to you, shall we? So do you you were saying that the closest quilt store to you is about an hour away. So do you have favorite spots where you go, whether online or in person, to buy your fabric and your materials?
Well, obviously, I like to support the local quilt stores as much as I can. So I will make the trek out to my store, the store there. But it becomes a day trip. It's
Yeah.
not a quick trip. It becomes a day trip. So usually I've created a list of a bunch of different projects or things that I need, and then I spend 4 or 5 hours there going through all the fabrics and finding what I need. So I do try to purchase stuff from there all the time. But I am probably like most everybody else in the world, and I am an impulse shopper as well. So I do purchase a lot of stuff online, from the Jordan Fabrics and the Fat Quarter Shops and the Missouri Star Quilt companies of the world. So every once in a while I'll find some nice fabric on Amazon. I try to stick with brand names when it comes to Amazon and
Yeah.
the larger retail stores, just because the quality can vary significantly. So I try to stick with brand names as much as I can when I'm purchasing from those types of places. But if I'm purchasing from a Jordan Fabrics or Missouri Star Quilt Company, Fat Quarter Shop, those types of places, I trust their judgment. They've done their research and they know what
Yeah.
quality fabrics they're going to be offering. So I trust their judgment a lot more so than I would the larger stores.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think a lot of people, I love to shop online, but I love going into the stores as well, because, you want to feel the fabric as well. It's kind of a sensual thing. You get in there and stroke the bolt kind of thing. But I know there are a lot of people who say they don't like to buy online because for that reason, they want to touch the fabric and they're not sure what they're going to get. But I've always said, if you stick, like you said, to the brand names, ones that like Riley Blake, Michael Miller, all those ones, what the quality is going to be like. So that's a worry you don't have to have about that. The other thing people complain about is the color shift on your screen, your computer. But I have found only once did that give me a problem, and it was very minor. So that doesn't bother me either. But don't you love it when you go into a fabric store, or maybe this hasn't happened to you, and you're pulling out fabric and that someone's standing there, another customer behind you, go, oh, that's really pretty. What are you going to do with that? And I hate that question, because I say, I have no idea. It's pretty. I want it.
Yeah.
They look at you like you have to have a purpose. No, I don't. I have a purpose. I'm here to feed my creative soul, sort of thing. So yeah, I never buy less than 2 meters or 2 yards in your case, I guess, but 2 meters of fabric, because 1 meter, never enough. And 2 meters seems to work it. And even lately, some fabrics, if I really like it, I'll go to 3 meters, because usually you're always short. Doesn't matter. You're always short. Then you're scrounging to figure out what to do with it. So yeah, and you're right about the Amazon experience too. You really got to check the name on it, because a lot of those fabrics do come from China, and I've never ordered any on Amazon, but I've heard other people, and it's just been a horror story. The stuff was practically see-through, and didn't feel like cotton, but whatever. So yeah, you got buyer beware, but you can get some good deals online too, especially with the cost of fabric these days. So do you have any favorite experts or sources of information you'll turn to when you want to learn something new, or you're having problems with something? And I imagine it probably comes from YouTube.
Yeah, the majority of my training and my learning does come from YouTube for sure. Donna Jordan has always been a huge influence. Hers was the first video that I had ever come across when I started the quilting process. When I told you about how I came across that very first video, hers was the video I came across. And I've always loved her ability to be able to teach people in a very short amount of time how to do something. I've always admired her for that. And that's one of the things that I strive for on my channel. I mean, as the name of my channel indicates, I am not an expert, but I'm going to try and at least teach you what I've learned, and hopefully that will help you learn as well. So I try to take her techniques as best as I can. Becca has been another amazing influence, especially with regards to my channel. The very first video that I caught of her, she was trying to make a project, and she was just completely blocked. You know, we all get there. We have this momentary blockage of, we just can't figure out what we're going to create that day, and we want to create something because we know that it's going to help us, but we just can't seem to figure out what it was. And she was on her live stream and she was blocked. She didn't know what to do. She didn't have any ideas of what she wanted to do, so she just started sewing, and she had some other stuff going on in the background of her life. And you know, and I've experienced this myself. You know, you sit in front of this machine and you have these other influences around you, and before you know it, your emotions are taking over. You're not really creating anything, but your emotions are just taking over, and this becomes your therapy room. This becomes your way to let go of those things that have happened outside of this room. And she did that on a live stream on her camera. She let herself go. She let herself be vulnerable. She let herself be real. And I admired her for that. I looked at her and I thought, well, you know what, if she can do that, if she can be that vulnerable on the camera, then I think that I can actually do this, because I can't put on a brave face. I can't act. I'm not an actress. I can't act. But if I can just be me and have my good days and have my bad days, and that be okay, and that be acceptable, and people still want to hang around and help me through that, well, then maybe I can do this too. And so she has been a major influence for me. I've never talked to her. I've never participated in any of her quilt alongs or anything like that. I just watch her. I'm one of her quiet, silent watchers. But she has been a major influence, especially with regards to my channel. You know, obviously there's the Kimberly Bells of the world. She does an amazing job. Her fabrics are incredible. I love the fabric choices that she has. So with regards to choosing fabrics and stuff, she's a huge influence for me as well. But yeah, my go-to is if I'm trying to make something, or if I'm trying to look for a new pattern or a new idea, Donna Jordan is the first place I go. Donna Jordan is the first place I go. And then when I'm in this room and I just kind of need to decompress and I'm working on something, Becca's on the screen. She's the one that I'm watching. She's the one that I'm spending my time with.
Yeah, I know what you mean about Donna Jordan, because I love her too. I watch her all the time, and I have bought a lot of her patterns that her free patterns. You know, she does a lot of free patterns, and the instructions are,
I think I have them all.
Yeah. And it's so easy, they're so clear. But yeah, she is an excellent teacher too. And you know, you were talking about as a YouTube creator as well, being, you know, somewhat vulnerable, because we're putting ourselves out there, you know. And I think people appreciate our vulnerability because we seem like real people then. You know what I mean? Like, there are the ones out in the world who put up these perfect videos about how to do something, and you never see a mistake. And for somebody just getting into quilting, they're very intimidating, because they figure, I'll never be able to do that. And so, as you said, you created your channel, and you admit up front you're not an expert, and it's in your title. Well, idiot's in my title. So yeah, and same reason I created mine, because I was making lots of mistakes, but I thought other people should see that not everybody is perfect, and you make a mistake, but how did you recover from the mistake? And I think that's more interesting for people to watch. At least that's my theory on that kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit more though about your YouTube channel. It is called So Not an Expert. And how long have you had the channel?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked, because today, Saturday the 28th, is my 1-year anniversary on YouTube. So it's really exciting.
Congratulations. That's great. And
thank you.
I'm hoping that when people see this interview and that they may have never heard of your channel, that they'll now go over to your channel and check it out, because I have checked it out and there's a lot of good stuff on there. I really quite
thank you.
it. So I'm sure other people will. And I know you're doing sort of a special event tomorrow, right?
Yes. So I do live streams. So I try to post at least one video a week on Thursdays in the late evenings. But 7:30 Central Time, I try to do a pre-recorded video. And then on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, we do live streams. And the live streams vary greatly as to what we're going to be working on that day. A lot of times I just pick things out of a hat. Honestly, there's just all kinds of things. We have some full-size projects that we work on that are exclusive to our live stream, so I'll kind of come back and forth to those. We have 2 of them going right now that I kind of rotate in and out. But yes, tomorrow we're doing a huge event. It's a really big event to celebrate our 1-year anniversary on YouTube, and my way of saying thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my fans and all of my new creator friends. I'm going to be doing a very long extended YouTube video. We're going to be making an entire project from start to finish, and I'm going to be on the camera until it's finished. I'm expecting it to be a 4 to 6 hour stream at least. We'll have to wait and see. And there's also going to be some really, really big giveaways, as just, again, my way of saying thank you so much to everybody for sticking with me, for coming in and saying hello, for being my therapy for the last year, and hopefully my therapy moving forward as well. So yeah, we do a lot of really, really fun things on our channel. I have a points program on my channel that we call thimbles. As you're watching the live streams, people are earning points, and then they can trade those points in for prizes. And then we have these little mini games in our chat that we do during the live streams, that you can earn even more of those thimbles to earn even more prizes. And then of course we have the giveaways. We don't do giveaways on every live stream. I try to make them as random as I can. But we can give out scrap fabrics from the projects we're working on, or full-size pre-cuts, or sometimes it's just a little fat quarter or a notion or whatever. So yeah, we try to have a lot of fun. And there's really no plan. I just turn the camera on and we just start going.
Well, you know, I didn't hearing what you're talking about, your points program and all that, it sounds quite exciting. I do plan to tune in, at least for part of it anyways, tomorrow to check it all out as well. But I'm kind of excited about it. And you know, what you're offering by doing that tomorrow is a chance for people to get together with other people. And so it's sort of like a retreat in some ways. So it sounds really exciting. So congratulations on 1 year.
Thank you.
And I am sure there's good things to come later on as you grow, as your channel grows. I can't see why it wouldn't. So before we finish up on this, do you have any advice for someone who's just getting started into quilting?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that as one of the questions that you had posed to me, and I had that one actually took me a little bit of time to think about, because I mean, obviously, as the name of my channel indicates, I'm not an expert. So as not considering myself an expert, it's hard for me to give other people advice, because I feel like I don't have the right to. And I know that's silly, but it's something I'm still learning how to do. But if I could give anybody advice, or if I was even allowed to, I would have to tell people to not to focus on things being perfect. You know, done is much more important than perfect. Like you said, you know, you're going to make mistakes. It comes with the territory. That's why they have, you know, seam rippers. That's why they invented them. Exactly. It's because we all make mistakes, you know, and that's the beauty of this particular hobby, is for the most part, if you make a mistake, you can usually fix it, or there's ways around it, or, you know, add a different fabric, or do different things. And you know, I don't feel like these are mistakes. I feel like they're happy accidents. Yeah. So I try to keep a positive attitude when it comes to that. And that would be my piece of advice to somebody else, is you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's normal. It's part of the process. Embrace them. Yeah. You know, utilize them, you know, showcase them in your pieces, because the imperfections are what make your projects perfect. They're one of a kind. They're unique. No two are the same. And that's the whole point of it. I mean, you can make the same quilt 1,000 times, and each one is going to be slightly different. You know, maybe your needle shifted just to the left in this piece, or you cut this one just a little bit weird on an angle, or no two are going to be exactly the same. And that's, to me, is the most important part of this handmade hobby. It's not machine made. Well, I mean, obviously it's machine made, but it's not, you know, it's not being spit out in mass production. So don't focus on things being perfect. Just focus on them being completed, and enjoy the process, enjoy the journey.
Yeah. And the imperfections, I think, are what I like to call customizations
There you go.
To opportunities for creativity or
There
whatever.
you go.
We don't call them mistakes. They're not mistakes.
Mm.
They're just little fun little oopses. What was it Bob Ross used to say? Oh, that was a happy little accident.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, but
Yep.
I agree with everything you said. This is supposed to be fun. It's just fabric and thread. Go with it. And
Yep.
as time goes by, you'll get better. You'll learn, whatever. Unless you're one of those kind of people that immediately wants to put their first quilt into a show. Well, that might be a little unrealistic, but whatever. So before we leave, do you have any parting words or anything more that you'd like to discuss or tell us about?
No, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me onto your channel and inviting me into your community. I'm truly grateful for that. Thank you. And hopefully some of your community members feel free, they're more than welcome to come over to my channel. We have an amazing group of people over by me. And we're always welcoming new members. So
And I will be putting the link in the show notes for this interview to your YouTube channel as well. So that should help people get there as well. But anybody, well, no one's going to see this before you have your live, because this won't go up until Tuesday. So I was going to say, anybody watching this, but I forgot we're not live at the moment. But anyways,
well, that's okay. They can catch the next one.
With it all. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know that your time is precious because you do have to work, unfortunately, and but you might like to eat and have a house, so to live in, so that's probably a necessity. And but thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview with me, and just stay on the line for a minute. But thanks again, and I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the weekend as well. So bye for now.
Thank you, Stephen. You too. Bye bye.